Welcome to My Little Book Love podcast, a podcast created for readers and reviewers like you. Whether you're looking for book recs, inspiration to post on your bookish social media, or validation that your favorite book was actually that good, I hope you find whatever you need here. I'm your host, Miko Books, a Kentucky-based bookstagrammer. I love fantasy, romance, and anything Sarah J. Maas. If you like what you hear today, follow the podcast on Instagram at My Little Book Love Podcast and follow my Bookstagram at Miko Books. That's MICHCO Books on Instagram, where I upload more bookish content. Today we have a very special guest with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Alyssa. I am the podcast host for Stories and Spoilers podcast. So we discuss spoilers, all things books, but I also do non-spoiler episodes for folks who maybe want to hear about the book, but they don't want to be told all the spoilers right away. So they can just circle back once they've read it, and then we'll go through it. And then I also have my own little fun kind of story podcast thing where I don't know. I like being able to talk about books nonstop. So that's kind of what you'll always gain from my podcast. And I love being here with you. I'm a huge fan of your podcast. And you can also find me on my personal book page, which is cozy.soul.reads, where I just post all things books that I read. That goes for smut, fantasy, horror, horror anthologies, sci-fi. I read everything. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're here today. Okay, so there's a couple, honestly, since we're both bookstagrammers, I just thought, let's just talk Bookstagram today. Like, what brought you here, what motivates you, kind of where you want to go. So I'll break it down in the description, like kind of outline where we're going to go, because right now we're just going to go off the dome with it. But
yeah.
First off, I just kind of want to know, what brought you to Bookstagram? Like, what's your origin story, I guess?
I feel like an anti-hero. I'm not all good, I'm not all bad. I think I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the hyped books. I feel like I've either read them. This sounds horrible. I feel like I've either read them before they were hype. Like I read all of Colleen Hoover's books before like the movies came out or before she got like slammed.
Yes.
That's one of her first books, Slammed.
Oh, that was so good.
But I read a lot of her books before all like the tea came out and all the dark stuff. And now as I've gotten older, I'm just not a huge fan of her books anymore. You know, no shame to people who do love them. Also, if you see like green eyes in the corner, that's Midnight. He's also my podcast. He's like my little co-host. He's my black cat. He loves books. He loves trash TV as well. Anyway, he loves Bridgerton.
Oh my gosh, me too, Midnight.
I love Bridgerton. We were all about that Colin season. We loved Anthony. He's the best season in the world.
That is the best.
I want books that make you feel that way. Like
yes.
The Love Confession, where he's like, there's nowhere you could go far enough. There's no corner of this earth. I love
that. Oh my
God. Love it. I don't care if it's cringy. I love it. So I love books that make you feel something. And that's kind of what pulled me to Bookstagram was that like I saw everyone recommending books that I wasn't seeing in like Barnes and Noble. Mm-hmm. And I learned about like Kindle Unlimited, where you could get like I think it's like 13 or 14 books a month and you could like swap them out and almost like return them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. So I just felt like Bookstagram was like one of the first places where I felt like I could kind of build my own like group and following and like I could make new friends. And I kind of got into it around COVID. So I've been in it since for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And the podcast is new. I just started my podcast this year and I got to meet you. And I've been able to make some new friends and talk about all sorts of books that like either no one's talking about or books that I just wish more people would talk about. So that's kind of how I came here. I love talking about books and I love making friends. So yeah.
I love that. Like we did meet through, I guess, other podcasters and everybody says that you were so sweet and so nice and supportive.
Thank you.
So I think that you add so much to this community as a whole, which I've been on Bookstagram, I want to say almost 3 years. It'll like two and a half, whatever. So very similar. And with the Colleen Hoover stuff, I've not read any Colleen Hoover. Like I love that you so you were drawn here because you want to bring more attention to books you feel like should get more attention, but also just talking books. I love that.
Yeah.
This is the best place for it.
And I feel like if there was a a person who inspired me. I watched her a lot in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she's kind of like, to me, like the older sister who had all the book recommendations that you always wanted to read, but you weren't allowed to read.
Yes.
She would like tell you a non-spoiler section, and then she would dive into all the details, and she would get like super emotional, or she would read her favorite quotes from the book. And I would like watch her videos walking home in high school, like off my phone on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a huge fan. Like I didn't want to be a YouTuber. I just wanted someone to talk about books with.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I guess I kind of had like a virtual friend. I didn't have a lot of friends. So it was like it felt like having like a cool person to talk to. And then in real life, I got into like book clubs and stuff. But either I would read the book super quick, or I would go in blind and end up not liking the book.
Yeah.
So Bookstagram is like they give you tropes, and then they give you like the vibe of the book. You get to see the aesthetic of the book, and then you
Mm-hmm.
get to see if you like it, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice. And we're like book twins. We've both been here for about 2 or 3 years, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That is
Pretty
pretty
cool.
cool. I love that
Yeah.
though. So you honestly like the way that I came to Bookstagram was I scrolled across like Instagram one day and I saw a book account and I was like, whoa, people do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really follow anyone. I followed that girl and I was like, okay, I could do this too. That's so fun. And I'm just kind of someone who makes impulse decisions. So I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll do this. And I had
I'm
no
right there with
idea
you.
what I was doing or, I love that you kind of this is a safe place. Like everyone's
Mhm.
welcome here. Books
Yeah.
bring people together. And I just love that so much. It's kind of very inclusive and very
Mhm.
supportive. And, but there are some darker sides to Bookstagram. Like,
Oh yeah.
have you had any big struggles? Like, what's a big hurdle that you've had to overcome or,
Yeah. I think representation. I think it's like what if you don't have like all white bookshelves and like thousands of dollars in books? Like if you look behind me, I'm a very honest person. Like
yeah.
I don't I don't if I had $1,000, I would have my own little library and I would have like a cushiony chair. I don't feel like you see it very often on Bookstagram or on social media when you can only buy maybe 2 books a month. You know what I mean? Or maybe your Kindle was a gift from your mom or your grandma or something like that. Like I didn't buy my Kindle. My mom gifted that to me. Like it's not glamorous, but I do feel like that's kind of the dark side of Instagram and Bookstagram, is that it's all about like what you can buy and like what you can get, and it's very rare that I see people being able to like be represented who are kind of just figuring things out financially, or maybe they live with their families and reading is like their escape. Everything is
Mhm.
perfectly color coded, everything is perfectly organized, and that's just not real life. Like I wish you could see like real life, like in social media. I don't know, I feel like that's another thing, like on my podcast, is that I'm gonna do episodes where it's called like unpopular opinions, where people can anonymously share their opinions about Bookstagram and just about like social media in a safe space. And they don't have to put their names. I would just read their opinions so that we could kind of have conversations about them. Because I that's my only thing, is I just feel like the bar is so high,
Mhm.
um, and everything is so perfect that it almost it's like the comparison. It's really bad. Like even if you're down to earth, like
Yeah.
do you feel that too, where it's kind of like, oh, like everything is perfect? I'm not like that every day. Like
Yeah.
that's not what it looks like, you know?
That's one of the hardest parts, I think, is not comparing yourself and your
Mhm.
situation. Like before the podcast started, I showed you my shelves. They are a mess though. And like I'm not, it's really hard to look at what you have and then like I feel very limited in the aesthetic of my posts. Like I don't feel like I have a
Mhm.
good place in my house that's like beautiful and I don't have like the little flowers to put like they're so pretty. Like the posts get so aesthetic and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like I'm never gonna be to that level. So I guess
Mhm.
understanding and I think that there really is a population for everyone. Like that's
Yeah.
not for everyone. There are people that want a really aesthetic feed and like
Mhm.
I think that knowing that you don't have to have a ton of money to be on Bookstagram. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get ARCs in the mail. Like there are ways to get books for free and stuff, like, just
Mhm.
promoting people's books. And like I love that you don't have to have a lot of money, but I do think there's a pressure to like keep up with everyone else. Like everyone has
Yeah.
special editions and
Mm-hmm.
signed copies and like
Mm-hmm.
go to a lot of events. I'm very blessed, I think, because I did not get into Bookstagram until after I graduated with my master's. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think I am financially in a place right now where I can afford to buy books. I probably shouldn't be buying as many as I do, but
Yeah.
definitely if I was still
Count
like,
me in. Yeah.
yeah, but if this was like 5 years ago and I was struggling in college and I was just really, it would feel very hard, I guess, to scroll through Instagram and be like, man, I'm just not there and I don't have what I need. But if you wait for everything to be perfect and for, your shelves to look great and you to have a great setup, like it's just never going to be time. So the best
I
thing to
agree.
do is like make an account, put yourself out there, like engage with people. There's just so many great people online. Like,
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna like bungee jump off what you said. I, I was overwhelmed, and luckily I had friends at the time and my amazing partner being part of the LGBTQ community. It's it's given me a lot more courage. I live in Florida, like it's kind of scary. It's given me a lot more courage to like post spicy books online, things I usually wouldn't talk about in public. I talk about on my Bookstagram. Um, Even just like using like resources like Libby, library apps on your phone where
yeah,
you can listen to like audiobooks, where you can like find Audible has free books, and also there's like Kindle stuff your Kindle days. That's the beauty of social media. Like people will hook you up with those resources. You can find free books. Personally, for me, Kindle Unlimited, that's where most of my reviews came from when I first started out, was like, what books can I find that are free on Kindle Unlimited that I like? Not that everyone else is like, no, like books that like I specifically like want to read more about. Like I love a good taboo romance. I love small town romances. I love a good horror, a good sci-fi. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you don't have to be in a box. But if you do like a certain genre, live in that genre if that's what you want. It's like this is the one place where you can be anything you want, you know? So enjoy it. Like have fun. There's no shame. Don't yum someone's yum. Like, you know what I mean? Like if it's not for you, it's not for you, but
Yeah.
everyone's so nice. Like I've been very, very blessed. Like everyone has been very friendly, and anyone who hasn't been friendly, that's the beauty of blocking. You can block them. You can block them, So yeah, that's always an option. So
That has definitely been a challenge, I think, is finding your community and people that
mhm.
their content you resonate with it and like that you like what you're making and what they're making. And, you can block people, you can
Yep.
unfollow people, like sometimes people, there's some shame around that or whatever. But if content is
Yeah.
difficult for you to look at, or if it's like, if it's not books that you really read, it's like there's
Hmm.
not you can really just make your own community and kind of tailor it to what you like and the genres you like and the people you like to engage with. And
Hmm.
it, yeah, I love that. Like, it's just the beauty of Bookstagram. So, what
Exactly.
motivates you to continue? So, it has been like 2.5 years for
Hmm.
both of us. What motivates you to continue engaging and posting? And, what do you hope to I don't know what will be the point that you'll look around and be like, okay, like I'm where I want to be.
Yeah. Personally, I think I would love to be at a point where, like, my mom has always told me, like, start a YouTube channel, start a YouTube channel. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see you, share that with people. Personally, like, YouTube isn't even my goal anymore. My goal has always been to create a safe space for people like me, people who wanted to read where the budget was tight, but they wanted to explore different worlds, or they wanted to be in a relationship with a motorcycle guy, and or they wanted to be with like a Medusa like woman, like a monster. Like I want to be able to provide that comfort that YouTuber gave me, but through like a podcast, through any creative medium. If someone listens to my podcast or listens to this episode or listens to anything that I create with another person, I don't care if they feel like they're not alone, or like they almost read the book because of me, or they want to read the book now. That's the best feeling. Like I know I would have made it when someone says, I read this book because you recommended it and
Yeah.
it I loved it. That would really be like a good moment for me. Because for them to go out, get the book, or like get the book from the library, read it in their own time, be it on the bus or like at their lunch break at work or like maybe at high school, like on their recess or whatever, to know someone took the time out of their day to dive into this world and they found joy because of me, like that would be enough. You know what I mean? Like that would be enough. Yeah. And I got in touch with that girl, the girl that I was telling you about that I listened to her videos in high
Yes,
school. Yes, I follow her on Instagram and we have spoken. So
that
it's
is so
great. She's a
cool.
very nice person. Yeah. So
Oh,
it's a good feeling. And also authors. That's
hmm.
a have you ever like posted about a book you loved, like tag the author was tagged and they respond to you?
Oh my
That is the
God.
best feeling in the world.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's like a roller coaster. It's like it's like shivers. Oh God, you know? It's that's how you know you're nerdy when like you get so excited about like a hardcover, you know what I mean? Or you get
Yes.
excited because like the author messages you like, thanks. I'm like, she knows I exist. She knows I'm alive, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. Someone has to write these books. That came from someone's brain, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It makes me happy. It makes me very happy. You
There
know, there's no
was
shame. There's no shame.
no. I love
Yeah.
that. So there was okay. Have you read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan?
I have. I read it
It's
in high
so
school.
good.
I
Oh
feel so
no.
old for saying, I read it.
I could not even
I read it.
I would
Yeah.
not be emotionally ready to read that in high school. That book literally almost I don't know, I feel like it did something to me that I can't recover. But it was so beautiful and like I want it to happen again. Like I'm re-listening to it right now because I love it. But
Wow.
I wrote a review for her book. I guess this was like 2 years ago when I first read it, and I was like, I put the song like River by Leon Bridges on it, like, oh,
Ooh.
which is so good. And like,
That's my favorite artist. I've seen him
really?
live.
Oh
I've
my
seen him
gosh,
live. I
that's
saw
a
him
goal
live
of
last
mine.
year. I
I would love
love
that.
Leon Bridges. I love
He's
that
so good.
man.
But I
He
put
is.
that song over it and I like typed out this review and she commented and was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like you see the characters so clearly. And I literally was like, oh my gosh, can you imagine creating these people in your mind? And like she's just so talented and like I've met her at signings and stuff. Like she is so nice and like
Mm.
just wonderful. But to be able to interact with people that write things that you love, like you said, it's just kind of like these are our celebrities. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to meet like Beyonce or something. I want to meet like Sarah J. Mass. Like I want to meet
Oh,
an author. You know,
yeah.
just so
Yeah. We all have that girl. She's just that
yeah.
girl. You know what I mean? Like for you, Sarah J. Mass. For me, it's
Who's your
Gianna Darling. She's just that girl.
okay?
She's just that
What
girl.
does she write?
One of her books is right here as we speak. Anyway, so she I had to make sure she was included. She writes romances, like dark romances,
Uh huh.
but she also writes like taboo romances. So she'll write stories of like a teacher and a student, but then she'll
Oh.
swap it out where like the student is pursuing the teacher and the teacher is turning down the student and there's reasons why.
Uh huh.
And then you're like, oh, the age gap. But Lessons in Corruption is book one in one of my favorite series, which is the Fallen Men series. It is a group of Canadian motorcyclists. They're like a MC crew, and they hunt down really bad people, and they protect folks who can't protect themselves. And each one of the men is one of the books, and you get to learn their stories and like who they fall in love with,
Oh.
the background of the women they fall in love with. And then you get the women's perspective as well. So you get to learn about the women and like where they come from and why they fall in love with these men.
Whoa.
And it's really good. It's very, and not every book is taboo. Like
Uh huh.
one of the books is Friends to Lovers, and he's like a tattoo artist, and she gets all his art done all over her body, but he never notices her. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
pay attention to her. Very good. You got
Okay.
curvy representation.
Uh huh.
Yeah, you got like it's very and it's not always insta love. Like
Hmm.
Caution to the Wind is another book where like he was she was it was like the dad and her best like the main character was the best friend of this other girl and she fell in love with her stepdad, like that stepdad character.
Yeah.
And she was like 19 and he covered for her. She got in some really deep trouble and the cops came and he's like, you gotta go, girl. Like you gotta run. I'm gonna take the fall for you. I'm gonna go to prison and I just want you to go live your life.
What?
And after that night, she never heard from him again. He like no letters, no communication for I think like 10 years, I think. It was around that
What?
time. He was hurt. He was like, I took the fall for you. I thought we were at least family, like friends. Like, you don't talk to me. You abandon your best friend. Like, you're a horrible person. And you come to find out what she's been doing in the meantime. And it's about revenge. It's about love. The moment he sees her again, like, he tells everyone in the crew, if you ever see this girl, like, you need to get her out of my sight. Like, I don't want to see her face.
Uh-huh.
And he sees her again, and she's like, I'm here to protect my best friend. Like, I'm always got your back. He like throws her over his shoulder. He walks her out of the hospital, and he's like, I never want to see you again. And turns out she's still in love with him. She's
Oh,
always been. Yeah, so it's like enemies to lovers, but he deep down, he still loves her. He's just very hurt. Oh,
hey,
it's
what's the
so
name of
good.
this one?
Ah, it's it's called Caution to the Wind by
Okay.
Giana Darling. The cover, it's this like beautiful white cover
Uh-huh.
with like a red dragon because the main character, I think, is from Chinese descent. I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
And the author was very respectful of the culture. Like, she's writing about once again, like, I respect authors who can do research prior to writing characters that are not of their nationality or their race,
Yeah.
um, or even like sexuality. Like, I respect authors who write queer romances who themselves are not queer. Because to some extent, I think it requires a lot of bravery. You have to
Mm-hmm.
talk to people in the community. You have to be pretty creative. And I also give people a creative license. All right. It's a book. Just like you can write about wizards and fairies and mermaids, you can write about gay Jedis and like
Yeah.
wolf men, doors that turn into men, like women who become mermaids. Like, it's fancy. Like, that's my thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's writing. You should be able to be as creative as you want. As long as you're respectful and like you're cool, I'm okay with it. Like, I
Yeah.
heard about a romance about between a woman and a door. Nothing scares me now.
No.
Nothing. Nothing. I heard about the Kool-Aid Man. Have you
Yeah.
seen that on Kindle Unlimited? It's
No.
like a Kool-Aid Man, and he's like busting through the door, and the girl's like in a towel. I don't know what's
No.
going on here, but yes, I do judge books by their cover. I won't
Oh,
lie. If the
I do.
cover is heinous, I'm not reading it.
No.
I'm not doing it. I'm
Can I
not.
listen? Someone is going to read Caution to the Wind because of how you described it. I think you do so great at like,
Thank you.
honestly, I'm like, oh my gosh, that did not happen. Like, I want to read it
Yes.
now.
Yes, and his nickname, each man in the group has a nickname. And for
Uh-huh.
Caution to the Wind, his nickname is Axeman.
Axeman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Caution to the Wind.
Caution to the Wind.
Okay. Yeah.
Caution to the
It's on
Wind.
TBR now.
It's a really good book,
Uh-huh.
and it's also got like I will ask people with all of her books, I would check for trigger warnings
Yeah.
because, like I said, it is a dark romance, but they're all of her books have happy endings,
Mm-hmm.
found family, tons of spice. And also they have really strong female main characters. Like, all these women take shit from no one. Like, the
Oh.
men are strong, but their female counterparts are twice as strong as they are. Like, and they're well aware of that, you know? So it's good. And all these men act all tough, but deep down, when you get their point of view, they
Mhm.
fall harder. And
Oh.
all of them fall harder. You know what I mean? So I absolutely
Uh,
love it. Yeah. It's even her main male character,
uh-huh.
Zeus Scarrow, everyone says he's Jason Momoa. He's this like bigger than life man.
Uh-huh.
And he ends up falling in love with like the church girl in this small town who has cancer, and like he saves her, and then he ends up going to prison because he had to unalive someone to save
Uh-huh.
her.
Oh my
um
gosh.
and then years go by, and beware, when he met her, I think he was like 21 and she was like a child, and he was like, he saved a little girl. He's like, all right. She starts writing to him, and she's like, you're a beautiful monster, like, thank you for saving my life, I pray for you. And he's like, you need to stop writing to me, this is inappropriate, do not talk to me, but like, I'm grateful I could save you. And then she turns, I think, like 18 or 19, he gets out of prison, and then she's like, that is the love of my life, and I'm gonna fucking get him. And he's like, no ma'am, no ma'am, I am not the love of your life, no ma'am. And she's like, I have darkness inside of me, and I am gonna be with you. And he's like, no ma'am, I am the baddest man in this group, I have 2 kids who are your age, that's not the path, no
Oh.
ma'am. And she's like, no, I am the one. So then, anyway, so long story short, you come to discover that her illness has come back,
Uh-huh.
and all the men in the group shave their heads because she's losing her hair. So they all take off their hair. So she won't be alone and she
Oh,
won't feel ashamed.
yeah.
She's blonde. She's like, oh, she's got all this blonde hair. And like she shaves, she has to take it off. And she's gonna lose it. And then he shaves his head, and then all the men shave their heads. All of the men.
Oh.
And it's just like, it's just moments like that where I'm just like, and then and there's like drug deals, and then they try to bust the drug dealers, but then she gets captured, and you're like, no. And it's like the dark side of Hallmark, but in Canada. It's and with
Oh, it's
motorcycles.
in
You know
Canada
what I
too?
mean? It's great. It's great. It's a
Oh,
lot going on, but it's so good. And yeah, like all the books connect too. In each book, you get to see what happens to the characters years later.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And that book is called Welcome to the Dark Side because she's a good girl and he's like the leader of this group and everyone thinks he's a horrible man, but like he literally went to prison just to save her,
oh my gosh.
just to save her. And her family hates him because they think he lives a life of sin. But
Yeah.
he's like, if I have to live in the darkness to keep her in the light, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm like, Zeus.
Oh,
And he's supposed to look like Jason Momoa.
oh my
Mhm,
gosh.
But he
I cannot
adores.
believe I've never
It's
read
amazing.
anything by her.
It's so good.
I don't
She
know
like
how.
she writes great books. I can't even the moment, and also she has had relatives who've had cancer, and my
Yeah.
dad has cancer. So when she writes about it, she writes about it very respectfully.
Yeah.
She doesn't throw it into the story to like make you feel sad. She throws it into the story because it's part of the character and what they have to overcome
Hmm.
and what they have to live with. And she just writes loss beautifully. She writes female growth beautifully. She writes like when there is trauma, she's very respectful of that trauma. Like
Yes.
she's just like an amazing author. I can't even, and that's why she's my favorite because she makes you fall in love with the characters, but she also makes you like genuinely feel like for the families and like
Yeah.
what the brotherhood means, you know? So there's a character named Priest and like he has no one, but
Hmm.
then he ends up meeting the brotherhood and they take care of him. And he's a very dark person.
Yes.
But he ends up meeting someone who compliments him very well, you know, and the whole theme of his book is like I'll haunt you because he feels like he's a ghost. He's not even a real man anymore. He feels like he's not even there anymore. So he's like I can't love anymore, but he's like I'll haunt her. I'll follow her. I'll support her, but he's like I
Daughter.
have no light in me anymore. And she's also Christian. So she's
Yeah.
a character where like she believes in like light and goodness, and he's like he just has so much trauma related to church he can't even like support her in that way. But
Yeah.
it turns out she has a true crime podcast and a serial killer in the town becomes obsessed with her and he wants to take her as part of his flock. But Priest is like, you know what? You already got one dark guy trying to chase you down. Too bad. You already had one man fall in love with you. I'm the darkest man in this town. I'm gonna get him. So he ends up falling for her. He's like, listen, girl. He's like, I'm not doing that with you. And she's actually she fell first. So he didn't fall for her. She fell first. So while he thinks that he's this like dark, menacing man, it turns
Yeah.
out that like she likes daggers and she wears like pink bows and like pink frilly stuff, but deep down, like she's got like a super dark side.
Love
But she also loves church and stuff, and her
Yeah.
grandpa's like a priest. So it's very like and she's got her book called Dead Man Walking.
Uh-huh.
Like all the books are just so I and amazing. Gianna is just like you ever seen that like I'll send you a photo, but it's like a raccoon with a little like tiara
Yeah.
and like a tutu. That's me when I get a new Giana Darling book. I'm like, I'm feral. I'm like mother
my God.
serving, you know? I own most of her books. She's just brilliant. She's amazing. She's wonderful.
Is
She can do
she
no wrong.
is she an indie author? Does she
Um,
is she under someone?
she's got pretty big like her like and she's gotten very I feel like very popular. But I think you can still all of her books, you're gonna love me for this. All of her books are on Kindle Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited, so now we can read everything we've
They're
talked
all on Kindle Unlimited.
I love that. I'm just listening to all this. Like, okay, I don't do a lot of taboo or dark romances, but I'm
Mhm.
kind of like, oh, I'm intrigued. I don't know.
Mhm.
I just feel like it's how you describe things, though, is just very brave.
Thank you. Oh,
I
she's my favorite author too. So I'm un
You're a little,
poquito. I might be a little biased,
a little
but I
biased.
love her. And they all have happy endings, may I add. None of her books, like, if they have dark parts, they don't end. It's not like gonna be like a haunting Adeline where it's
Yeah.
just like dark, dark, dark. There's gonna be and I that's not a spoiler. It's like a genuine. There's gonna be a happy ending. There's gonna be found family. She does tend to have her characters get married or have kids,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. And all of her characters have a soft side. I think the only character who didn't have a soft side was Priest. I think he's the only one
He was
who
just
just
sad.
it didn't it got better for him, but it just took a very long time. But eventually things got better, So
Oh,
um yeah, yeah. And the girl from book one, her name's Lulu. Her sister is Priest's future partner. Her name's B. So you get to see how these characters all like they pop up in one book and they end up becoming the main character in the next book.
I love when authors do that. It really ties everything together. You kind of get
Yeah.
what am I reading? Done and Dusted. Do you read like Cowboy
Yes.
Run? Okay, so Done and
Yes. I've
Dusted.
had my eye on that one.
Read it. It's so good. That one's like brother's best friend, and like like she ends up with her brother's best friend, and she's a barrel racer, and she's been gone for years, and she comes back to her hometown, which is like
Ooh.
in Wyoming. It's just really good. But that
I
series,
love cowboys. I
oh,
love a good
you know,
cowboy, cowgirl.
I
I love
didn't
it.
know that I did until
I
I
love
read
it.
this, and I was like, wait a minute,
Love it.
actually,
Yeah.
something's
I'm a huge
happening.
country fan artist. I love country
Yeah,
music. I love it. I hid that forever. I love country music.
were
Casey
you embarrassed?
Musgraves' most recent album,
Uh
beautiful. Guys,
huh.
listen to it. Casey Musgraves, her song Anime Eyes or Follow Your Arrow,
Uh huh.
um, or Biscuits, a lot of her songs are very like centered on like self-love
Hmm.
or like being your truest self and being very emotional.
Oh, I love that.
It's just beautiful. I'm also a big Taylor Swift fan.
Oh,
So
see,
I love her. I love
this
her.
is so good. Okay,
She's amazing. Yeah.
so I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll kind
Okay.
of wrap things up. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to people who are struggling to find their
Mm.
people or their place on Bookstagram?
I guess I would say find one book that makes you really happy and tell someone about it. And then ask them about a book that makes them really happy. Finding a common like love for a book or finding like even something that you could discuss, like, hey, you know what? I'm actually not a huge fan of Sarah J. Maas. I've read a few of her books, and as
Yeah.
an adult, I just can't get into it. Someone else may be like, well, you know what? I adore her. Okay, well, we can agree, disagree, but maybe you could recommend me a fantasy book that I could get into now, and then
Mhm.
maybe I could recommend you like a high fantasy or like maybe something similar. So when you finish that series, you have something else to kind of bounce off of. You know what I mean? Like I would say
Yeah.
find a common connection or make a social media post like if you like this, then read this.
Yeah.
If you like this movie, then watch, then read this book. Because people want to engage with you.
Mhm.
They want to know your thoughts. Your opinions and your thoughts matter. So don't be afraid to share them. Yeah, that would be my tip. Will be yours.
That's great advice. I would say, yeah, just maybe finding a group that you fit in. Like if you can't find like books you have in common with people, but like Twilight has a huge fan base. Like just finding your place in somewhere and making
Agree.
connections, maybe even just like one person at a time. But like you
Mm-hmm.
said, people want to engage with you. People want to tell you what they think as well. So
Yeah.
engaging with other people's content is like
Yes.
great. Like people love that and they'll engage with you back, and it can really help you kind of, build relationships and meet people. And look, it got us here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that just the
Yeah,
power
we
of
became we
Bookstagram.
became fast friends for
Yeah.
sure. But books are like tea. Some people like green, some people like black, some people like coffee. Not every book is for every person,
Yes.
but there is a book that matches your personality. Like for me, my favorite series, very dark, very spicy. That may not
Mhm.
be for everyone, but I also know that there's like wholesome books out there that fade to black that someone may love, or a good cowboy romance where he sweeps her off her feet and you wear the hat, you ride the cowboy, things like that. Like someone may like that. So what you read is your business and
Yeah.
what you share is 100% up to you. But like that's the beauty of a book, is that it's not about anyone else but yourself. And then when you close that book, that feeling of like the story is with you,
Hmm.
that feeling never goes away. It's the best feeling in the world.
Oh,
So
that is so true. I cannot remember anything I read after it's over, but I know how I felt. Like, I just know,
Yes.
that stays with you. You remember how you felt. Like, I don't know.
Mm.
It's just special. And it's just
Yeah,
great. But
yeah. I highly recommend if you're looking for a book that will like make you feel like hugged and like
mhm,
warm and sweet and happy, I would recommend I think it's called like Sleep Kitten or it's something like that.
uh-huh.
But it's by S.J. Tilley. It is a hockey romance.
Mhm.
He falls first and she's a curvy female main character and it's just dual POV and the chapters are like so short. They're like maybe 5 or 6 pages tops.
Oh,
You fly through those
yeah.
puppies. Like it's such a good book. And also it makes you like his form of affection and like the way she opens up little by little. It's a beautiful story. Like if you want a book that like you close it and you don't need to remember all the plot, you just remember how it made you feel. Anything by S.J. Tilley will make you feel like warm and loved and seen. And the way the men think about the women
Mhm.
and the way they describe like their personalities, it's just so beautiful. Like it's like a cappuccino. It's just fluffy and warm, you
Yeah.
know? So
Oh,
yeah,
love
yeah,
that. Yeah,
100%.
that's so nice. And that's called
Yeah.
what'd you say?
I have it. I literally was reading it earlier today. It's a super hyped book. Everyone has been like talking about how good it is. And I was like, I should have read this a long time ago. It's by S.J. Tilley and I'm gonna pull it up. The cover is a little bit cringe, so I would definitely like, read it on your phone. It's called Sleep Kitten. So Sleet Kitten, because his nickname for her is Kitten. Because when she
Oh,
gets sassy, her claws come out. He's like, oh, when you get sassy, like you just get, like you're mean for no reason.
yeah.
But she's a super sweet person, and sleep because of the ice. So it's because he's a hockey player. But
Oh,
yeah, if I had to give you a 2 second description, she's at an event for her cousin and she wants to leave because she almost sees her ex, so she breaks a heel and runs downstairs to what she thought was a basement, but it turns out it's a library.
oh.
And she starts eating these like caramels, and then this super attractive guy, my friend imagined him as Henry Cavill. This super attractive guy is like, do those belong to you? Like, what are you doing here? And she turns around and it turns out that it's his house, it's his little library, and he was hiding from everyone else as well.
Oh,
And they end up spending the night together just watching movies. She falls asleep in his arms, they snuggle. Very sweet. And he ends up asking her cousin, like, hey, when she wakes up, she's gonna be super embarrassed. She's not gonna want me to get her number. Can you please
yeah.
give me her number? Like, I'm a gentleman, please. And he gets the number and he spends the rest of the book trying to sweep her off her feet.
That's so
And
sweet.
he's a big mama's boy and he's
Oh,
super sweet. And there's a little bit of spice. It's this spice, and it's super cute.
oh,
Yeah, and it's called Sleep Kitten by S.J. Tilley, and it's a hockey romance. It's a good little entry level hockey romance, and
mhm.
it'll make you feel so warm. The way he like woos her,
Uh-huh.
it's cute. It's very
Well,
cute, you know. So
I need
yeah.
that. I need something cute and sweet and just kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. You've gave so many good recs tonight. I'm gonna have
Yeah, no
to just like
problem.
make a list, but thank you so much for being here.
No
Go ahead
biggie.
and plug
Thank you for
your
having me.
Insta again, just so everyone
Yeah.
knows.
Of course, my podcast Instagram is at Stories and Spoilers podcast, and my personal page on Bookstagram is Cozy Soul Reads, and that's it. And I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. But yeah, my brain like starts a short. I'm like, can I spell? Can I read? All I know is emotions and vibes. But
That's enough though.
yes, yeah. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yes, thank you for being here. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
it
guys
was
for
awesome.
listening. We'll wrap up this week and I'll catch you guys next week.